The VF-0 Phoenix. What is the Phoenix? Well, a phoenix is a bird made of fire that can infinitely rebirth itself, like Steve. The phoenix I'm going to talk about is the VF-0 Phoenix. The Phoenix was the first production run variable fighter made by UN forces following the Unification Wars. It was basically an F-14 Kai stuffed with over-technology salvaged from the wreckage of the ASS-1. What is the F-14 Kai? It was based on the Navy F-14 Tomcat of Top Gun fame. But the Kai is a fictional model that is supposed to be the Japanese take on the famous Grumman design. This followed Japan's trend of modifying American designs to better match their needs, like the F-4 Kai, based on the Phantom, the F-15 Kai, or the J variant, of the Eagle, the F-2, which is basically a bigger F-16 Falcon, and probably the most important modification that changed history. The 2001 Xbox controller upgrade from the groin-crushing arthritis-inducing Duke to the sleek and demure Akebono. In the Macross universe, the F-14 Kai was shown in action during the opening scenes of Macross Zero. The protagonist, Kudo Shin, trounced a flight of MiG-29 Fulcrums in his Kai, and at the same time pissed off his wingmates by endangering them and by being a real dick. This scene is immediately flipped when he gets his ass handily served to him by the SV-51 variable fighter piloted by one of the main antagonists. Now, moving on, we get our first view of the VF-0 Phoenix in action when Roy Fokker and his Skull Squadron show up to save the island of Maya from the bad guys who want to steal an ancient alien artifact that was found there. Now I want to be honest and come clean with everyone here. I have loved the F-14 since I was a kid, so I am a bit biased. And by extension of liking the F-14, I also like the VF-0 and the VF-1. But it was the SV-51 introduced in Macross Zero that stole my heart. How did the VF-0 Phoenix come about? It was jointly developed and produced by Northrop Grumman, Shin Nakasu Heavy Industries, and Stonewell. Working together, they used reverse-engineered over-technology to turn the F-14 into one of the world's first variable fighters. I really wanted to say it was a definitive first, but like many things in our world, espionage muddied the waters when it comes to who was actually first. Similar to the Tomcat in shape, the Phoenix was about half a meter shorter in length and 3.5 tons lighter, probably because of lighter alloys developed from alien tech. Both fighters used conventional turbofan engines, the F-14 using a pair of GE-110s, each pumping out 72.65 kilonewtons dry and 119 kilonewtons wet, while the Phoenix is powered by two EGF-127 jet engines that put out 91.08 kilonewtons dry and 148.9 kilonewtons wet each. So, those of you that don't know what dry and wet are, dry means normal thrust, and wet means afterburners on, which is dumping more fuel into the engine to give the engines more oomph. Now, how powerful is that? Thrust-to-weight ratio is a way we can understand an airframe's acceleration. A thrust-to-weight ratio of 1.0 is like a rocket. It can basically go from 0 to blasting off at a 90-degree angle perpendicular to the ground. The F-15 is famous for being able to do this right after takeoff. That's one reason I think it was used to shoot down a satellite. Commercial airliners have a thrust-to-weight ratio of 0.2 or so. The F-14 empty, so no weapons or extras, had a thrust-to-weight ratio of about 0.8. The VF-0 has a thrust-to-weight ratio of 1.87. Very cool, but probably not too nice on the pilot. Hopefully there was some over-technology found that could keep the weakest part of the system from turning into jelly when maneuvering and accelerating in combat. Here's some other details for those of you that like numbers. The max speed of the Phoenix was Mach 2.74. Compare this to some other famous planes. Its service ceiling is about 25,000 meters, beating most modern fighters that have a service ceiling of 16 to 20,000 meters and just a hair under the SR-71's 26,000 meters. The TLDR of this all is, it is a beast of a fighter. Is it safe? Sure. If you don't have internal organs or vertebrae that you don't mind being compressed, besides the possibly lethal G-forces that the Phoenix is going to inflict on its pilots, the plane itself would need to be tough enough to handle those G-forces and survive getting shot at the same time. Note, shot, not shot at. The massive power plant that was used to fly had a second, possibly more important job: energy converting armor, also called swag. Yeah, I know, I'm not kidding here. That is really what it is called, and I cannot for the life of me find out the meaning of that acronym. Now, swag is another over-technology trick that uses energy to make armor more durable. How? The system pulses electromagnetic waves through the special armor alloy to strengthen the bonds between molecules. And this makes the metal harder, but not more brittle. It could make the Valkyries strong enough to crash through several buildings and still be operable. While not usable in fighter mode because all that power was used to make the Phoenix go fast, it was usable in Gearwalk and Battleroid modes, the modes that get it more shot. This is where we finally get to the variable part of variable fighter. This technology quintupled the armor strength of the Phoenix in Gearwalk mode, about equal to attack helicopters, according to the mecha manual. But from what I know about helis, they don't have armor except around the canopy, unless you count the ACH-47 Guns A Go-Go experiments. If you know, you know. If not, look it up. You won't be disappointed. Since the AH-64 Apache canopy glass can stop a few rounds of 50 cal, I'm going to assume that in Gearwalk mode, the Phoenix can take hits from 12.7mm rounds and smaller. In Battleroid mode, only 10% of the engine's power was needed to move the mecha, so more power could be allocated to strengthening the armor, so armor value doubled from the Gearwalk mode. The sales brochure says that it is equal to tank armor, but my back-of-the-hand math says that the Battleroid had armor equal to about 5 centimeters of hardened steel. Not bad for a fighter plane, but it's not going to stop a tank round. Wikipedia says that's about how much armor the Panzer IIIJ had, a World War II medium tank. So the Phoenix is not going to be shrugging off shots from modern tanks. Yet. Later variable fighter types would live up to that claim, and more. Now the fun part. Weapons. The main gun of the VF-0 Phoenix was a belly-mounted 3-barrel GPU-9 35mm Gatling gun pod. This could be switched to be carried by hand in Gearwalk and Battleroid modes. This brrrt stick carried 550 rounds internally, and could vary its fire rate from 60 to 2,500 rounds per minute. You know, I've always wondered why it's rounds per minute and not rounds per second. If it was rounds per second, it would be 1 round per second to 40 rounds per second. I'm guessing here that bigger numbers make people happier. All these pointy pieces of metal left the barrels at 1,100 meters per second. Those of you that love the A-10 Thunderbolt II, or the Warthog, would know that the GAU-8 Avenger 30mm cannon that the plane was built around can spit depleted uranium Red Bull cans at a 50% faster rate, but 100 meters per second slower. Is that a lot, or is that even dangerous? Well, take a look at these. When you get to cannon rounds, a 5mm increase in diameter makes everything scarier. The closest equivalent to this in our world is the Rheinmetall Gepard anti-aircraft gun. Why did they use this round as the base for the Phoenix's gun? My guess is because the Gepard has AHEAD rounds, and the AHEAD round that was listed in the mecha manual. So there's my crappy backup evidence. The Phoenix also carried 35mm AP rounds, which our world does not have, or I just can't find evidence of it. If we use the old 37mm AP rounds used in World War II, those could penetrate between 30 to 45mm of armor depending on the range. But the 30mm gun of the A-10 can get through almost 70mm on a good day. So we can assume the Phoenix can put a lot of holes through some pretty tough customers. The standard variant of the FV-0 has a rapid-fire laser cannon on its head that can be used as an anti-missile system, anti-infantry, or starting a campfire. The Phoenix has 4 hardpoints that can hold a variety of munitions, from tried and true dumb bombs, high maneuverability anti-ship missiles, and my favorite, missile pods that give us the classic Macross missile storm that captured our imaginations. Anything else? Oh yeah, the standard stuff. Fly-by-wire flight control systems, air brakes, chaff and flare dispensers, ECM systems, active stealth, slit shutters on the air intakes to control airflow, and those slits can be completely closed off to allow for limited underwater diving. That's pretty cool. It also had a large capacitor to power all the electrical systems, the laser guns, and to temporarily power the swag. There are also some sweet equipment packs that can be loaded onto the Phoenix to make them fly further and faster, and hit a whole hell of a lot harder. First we have the leg-mounted fast packs, which somehow gave it an extra boost in speed, also with extra missiles and gun pod magazines. The Ghost Pack straps a QF-2200 Ghost drone to the Phoenix's back to give it even more acceleration, range, and munitions. The sweetest equipment package in my opinion was the PWS-0X variant. Only usable in Battleroid mode, this package loads armor, thrusters, and lots of more missiles. Check out this sweet scene which shows the explosive reactive armor at work. It also had 4 launchers of 50 micro missiles each that can all be vomited in a single volley to clear the area around the Phoenix of both enemies, friends, and terrain. After that is spent, the armor and launchers can be purged, leaving the standard VF-0 to go to work. Not really a variant by any means, it's just a steel furry suit that a war machine can wear when it wants to delete a grid coordinate. Now let's take a look at some actual variants of the VF-0 Phoenix. First and foremost, we have the VF-0A, which was rushed into service to counter the anti-UN's SV-51 variable fighter, which was starting to put cracks in the fragile peace the UN had barely brokered. This is the main reason the Phoenix was powered with a conventional turbofan engine instead of the thermonuclear engine that was being designed for it, because it was still in development. This made the VF-0 incapable of exo-atmospheric flight or powered movement underwater for extended periods of time. The chicken wire, duct tape, and ad hoc construction of the Phoenix probably led to its poor performance against anti-UN forces that were made up of the elite remnants of those who could not go back to a normal life. Anyway, it was a good rough draft that gave developers great practical data to put into making the VF-1. Next, we have the VF-0D, which was the 2-seater version of the Phoenix. Instead of the variable geometry swing wing design of the F-14, the aircraft took on a delta shape to improve its range and payload. It was probably also used as a trainer because of the 2-seater design. Finally, there was the VF-0S variant, which was considered to be a commander mecha, or a hero mech. It mounted an extra laser cannon and packed more communications and command gear in the head. Roy Fokker piloted one when he commanded Skull Squadron during the Mayan Island incident. In conclusion, while not the best mecha in the conflict it was involved in fact, it was quite outmatched, it was the drunk grandfather that, despite being cantankerous and quite possibly inbred, undoubtedly set the course of the venerable VF dynasty that makes for a good poster background to the musicians that headline the series.